79 in the...
Yes, everybody turn to our prayer before study. On page 79, we have this memorized now, sort of. Some of you do.
Some of us.
And we will start in. Christ my Lord, the giver of light and wisdom, who opened the eyes of the blind man and transformed the fishermen into wise heralds and teachers of the gospel through the coming of the Holy Spirit, shine also in my mind the light of the grace of the Holy Spirit. Grant me discernment, understanding, and wisdom in learning. Enable me to complete my assignments and to abound in every good work. For to you I give honor and glory. Amen. Most blessed Lord, send the grace of your Holy Spirit on me to strengthen me, that I may learn well the subject I am about to study, and by it become a better person, for your glory, the comfort of my family, and the benefit of your church and our nation. Amen. Wonderful. Well, we started a chapter this week called The Downfall of Athens, and that tells you a lot right there, doesn't it, about what's going to happen. I told you I would bring in pictures, and I did remember to this week. This is an artist representation of, I'm going to come around the room, I'll start with Emma and I'll go around, of what the Acropolis might have looked like in its heyday, with the painting, things painted, and the people coming up in procession and going up to the temples. And it just must have been absolutely amazing, beautiful, colorful, and very awe-inspiring. I've marked another page 2. Let me find out why.
Christian, did you stay up too late?
Oh, here we go. This is an aerial view. Again, an artist representation where you can kind of see down on the beautiful buildings that would have been on the Acropolis once upon a time. Oh, I guess actually that picture is on the front.
Oh, yeah.
I guess I didn't need to mark that. Here you go, Emma. This is kind of a looking from above view. And so the first, hey guys, the first question I asked you guys on page 21 was, where did they get all the money to build these beautiful things? Where'd they get it, Emma?
From Treasury of the Delian League.
Oh my goodness, from the treasury of the Delian League. What was that money supposed to do? Yeah, to protect them from the Persians. Hold on, I also want to get my map out. So remember that even though they had driven the Persians out of Greece, these people who lived over here, they were Greek colonists. These islands, look how close these islands are to what is today Turkey, what they called Asia Minor. And Sardis, right over here, was the capital of the governor of that area of Persia. They lived really, really close to one of the Persian capitals. And so it is just not very far. Do we have a scale on the bottom? Here we go. Do you see, look what 100 miles is. The bottom is kilometers, the top is miles. So think about, we're just talking about a couple hundred miles across the ocean. And when you can skip from island to island to island, this is not very far away. It's sort of like, how many miles is it? It's like 160 miles to Chicago, maybe? It takes us 3 hours to get to the north end of Lakeshore Drive. I don't know. I'm trying to think, within for us, a 4-hour, 5-hour drive. I realize you can't drive across the ocean, but it's not very far away. So this was a real threat. It wasn't just they were imagining things, that there was a threat. These Greeks living over here in these cities, they were in peril. Persia was very, very strong. And they said, hey, let's put together this league. Let's bind ourselves together. And you remember I told you, as time went on, people started donating money, not donating. Oh, it wasn't a donation, by the way. It was a tax. It wasn't voluntary. And so people started saying, well, we'll just give you money in place of ships and men. And they amassed all this money, and finally, they just moved it to Athens. And Pericles, the leader of Athens at that time, said, hey, we deserve it. We deserve that money. The Persians burnt our town. We lost everything in Athens. You owe us. So we're rebuilding with the money. And that was Pericles' attitude. Unfortunately, not everybody was a fan of his attitude, especially Sparta. And this is how Dorothy Mills describes what happened. From being their liberator, the one who frees them, Athens gradually became their mistress, domina, right? Their ruler. And little by little, she used her position in the league as a means to increase her own power. I want to read this, what Pericles says. Pericles maintained that the beautifying of Athens was a symbol of her might and power, and the great buildings employed labor. Hey, people use that as a selling point now. Hey, if we build a new bridge, it will employ people, right? It'll create jobs. Pericles said, this creates jobs in Athens. Encouraged commerce, both of which added to her prosperity. And these outward signs of wealth and might added to her ability to protect her allies. To this end, he argued that Athens was justified in using the money of the League, because the way in which it was being spent added not only to her glory, but to the security of all. Now, listen very carefully to the next paragraph about Pericles. Pericles was also a great lover of all that is beautiful, and he was honestly desirous that the youth of Athens should grow up in a city that should be a joy forever, that would make them good and useful citizens, inspire them with an abiding love for and pride in her. But there is a flaw in the character of a man who holds that the end, even if it is a great and glorious one, justifies any means. Have you heard that phrase before? The end justifies the means, or the end does not justify the means. Have you ever heard that? Let me start there. Or is that a new phrase to you?
I've heard it somewhere.
You heard it somewhere? People do say this, but how about the rest of you? Emma thinks she's heard it. Anybody else? The end justifies the means?
I've heard it. Yeah, I think I've heard it before.
I want to explore what that means. What do you think the end justifies the means? What in the world does that mean?
Bear with me, I'm thinking here.
Hmm?
But
No, it's fine.
even the end will justify the means. So like the end of what you're trying to accomplish, whether good or bad, if it's good, it will justify the means of getting it there, whether that is good or bad to other people.
That's exactly it. So say you want to
Christian.
beautify, no, because Pericles. Oh yeah, Christian was Athens
Yeah,
last
you're
week.
Athens.
Well,
Sorry.
we're going to relieve him of the burden of being Athens
yeah,
this week.
still.
No, we're coming to modern day here for a minute.
Yeah.
Imagine you want to, this is a good one. You want to set up a food pantry for the homeless. Is that a good thing? I felt we all can agree that it's good to feed people who are hungry. We all, yes.
Thank you.
What?
Unless they don't say
No, actually, unfortunately, Jesus does not say, unless they don't say thank you and then just take it all away. He just says do it. Okay, now, that's the end. Here, the end doesn't mean the stopping place. It means the goal. Does that make sense? Like the end, the finish line. The end, well, that would be both. The end is to feed hungry people. That's our end, right? We're going to set up this food pantry. Our goal is to help them. So maybe Evelyn, we're going to have Evelyn have a bake sale. You're going to have a bake sale. She's going to get all her friends to bake delectable treats, and they're going to sell them and raise money, and then use the money to buy food for the food pantry. Awesome.
Yeah.
Luke is going to rob a bank. Luke is going to rob a bank and raise money, and then he's going to buy food for the food pantry. Now, Evelyn, well done. Luke is problematic. But he could say, well, but I did it for a good cause. Like, they both had the same end. They wanted to feed hungry people. Well, who can argue with that? But the end, feeding hungry people, does not justify the means you use to get there. Does that make sense now? So you used appropriate means. You did not use appropriate means, I am sorry to say. You broke the law. You did something immoral and illegal, and we will have to incarcerate. We will have to incarcerate him, right? But sometimes it's not that easy to see. In my example, it's very obvious that robbing banks is just not okay. But sometimes people, like you told a friend's secret. But you did it for a good cause, because you think your friend needs help and you wanted other people to know. Maybe you just wanted to gossip, unclear. So you said, well, I did it for a good reason. I did it for a good reason is not really an excuse, right? Well, I just stole that car. I stole that car because my mom needed a car to get to work. No, that's a good. Yeah, you want your mom to have a car, but you can't just go stealing them. What? Oh, God, lay it on us. I'm excited. That is not ever going to be a good reason. But so Dorothy Mills says, Pericles' problem is he had a good end. I want to beautify Athens. I want us to look strong to the world because we're protecting our Greek brothers and sisters over, in Asia Minor. But his means was to just grab money that wasn't supposed to be used for that. And that's a problem. Does that make sense to everybody? Next time you hear somebody talk about the ends justifying the means, now you'll probably think of Luke robbing banks, but it's probably connected to that with you now. Okay, next question. Of what did the Corinthians accuse Athens? So everybody should have your book open to page 21. I'm going to say that again, because you should have all the answers written on that page. And therefore, you can answer the questions, but I don't expect you to be able to remember if your books are closed. Even I can't do that. But even I sound like I'm the oracle or something. No, that's very hard to do. Amelia, were you just stretching? Oh, you're allowed to stretch. It seemed like I want to tell why the Corinthians are accusing Athens. Somebody tell me something about the Corinthians and Athens. If there are words written on your page, read them to me. Britt. Accused them of stealing their land. Is there anything else they accused them of?
Tyrants.
And being tyrants. General rotters. Here's what happened. Dorothy Mills doesn't tell you this story, but lucky you, I will tell you this story. I will tell you the short version of this story. It's a little involved. Okay, no, this is not the one I want. Shh, 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 shh. Does everybody see this crazy long skinny island here? It is called Corcyra. Corcyra. And the Corcyrans were colony of Corinth. Where is Corinth? Corinth is right there. And a long time ago, the Corinthians had sent out colonists, and they colonized this island. So remember we talked about how, oh, colonies are good to their mother, city that sent them out, and they're supposed to be respectful and everything. And the Corinthians said, you Corcyraeans are a bunch of rotters, and you're not very respectful to Corinth. Okay, but whatever. So Corcyra had some problems with the people on the mainland here. They were attacking, and there was some problems. And then Corcyra had an uprising, and some people in Corcyra wanted to throw out other people in Corcyra, and there was like civil war. So anyway, Corcyra runs to Corinth, and I can't run to Corinth backwards, okay. And they say, oh, Corinth, our mother city, will you please come help us deal with this? And Corinth said, it's kind of a lot of trouble. I don't think we want to. So the Corcyraeans went to Athens. And they said, hey, Athens, Corinth doesn't want to help us. You want to help us? And they said, well, we kind of have a peace treaty thing going with Corinth, but we could make a treaty with you too. And we won't attack anyone, but we'll just send ships and we'll just guard you. We won't attack for you, but we'll defend for you. So Athens sends ships, and there's some skirmishes and some battles and everything. And Corinth says, what are you doing? What is Athens doing? But that is our colony. We're in charge of helping them. And Corcyra says, yeah, dudes, we gave you a chance. You didn't want to. So this started a big argument. It started a war. That was not the real cause, but that was the what am I going to say? The thing that struck the match. That was the spark that struck the match. So it says, in your book it says, when the Athenians turned to the west and tried to establish power there, that's what she means. That island, Corcyra, is to the west, and this is a good time to bring up this map. Guys, never ever forget, look how close. Here's Corcyra, might be Ithaca. Look how close it is to Italy. Look how close it is to Sicily. This is really, do you ever think about the fact that northern Greece is that close to Italy? It's really close. And so Corinth here has been used to shipping goods and, having a lot of commerce with Sicily, because there's Greeks living there too. And Athens was all about this side, right? Like Corinth says, we go this way. Athens says, we go this way. Oh, oops, now Athens is over here. Corinth says, hit the road. We don't want you. This is not your territory. We don't want you here. And that's what Dorothy Mills means when she said when they started turning west. The Corinthians became seriously alarmed. Corinthian envoys were sent to Sparta, and they basically were saying, hey, Sparta, help us squish Athens like a bug. There's not a direct quote from the envoys from Corinth, but that was what they want. Squish Athens. And why? It says, they said, some of us, as you see, have already been enslaved. They are at this moment intriguing against others, notably against allies of ours, they mean Corcyra, and long ago they had made all their preparations in expectation of war. And then, I'm going to read this because it's really interesting. I just read the book this comes from again, Thucydides' Peloponnesian War. The guys from Corinth said, hey, Sparta, here's the deal. Here's what you don't understand. You guys have a certain sort of personality, and Athens has a certain sort of personality as a city, and they don't match up very well. And you guys are going to get beat if you don't pay attention to their personality. Here's what the envoys said. They, Athens, are revolutionary, equally quick in the conception and execution of every new plan, while you are conservative, careful only to keep what you have, originating nothing, and not even acting when action is most necessary. Remember how long it took? They never even got to Marathon. I mean, they came after the Persians were dead, laying on the beach. They wanted to leave the battle at Salamis. He says, you guys take forever to get anything done. They act like that. They are bold beyond their strength. They run risks which prudence would condemn. Whereas it is your nature, though strong, to act feebly. When your plans are most prudent, you distrust them. When calamities come upon you, you think you'll never be delivered from them. They are impetuous. You are dilatory, which means you take too much time. They are always abroad. You are always at home. Sparta, they said, you don't understand what sort of enemy you're dealing with here. These people will dare anything. What happens to us as people when we do something and it turns out perfectly great, even beyond our expectations?
Are you happy about it?
You're happy, and how might you face the next thing you want to do?
Like, with
Total confidence. Boom, I'm unstoppable. I mean, sometimes we kind of feel that way. Beyond reason, do you know what I mean? We forget. If everything seems to go your way, you start to think, boom, I can do anything. I'm unstoppable right now.
How about like an idea on Monopoly?
Oh, so you're just buying it all up? Like, I'll just buy it. Bring it on. I'll buy it. In my family, we used to be allowed to go into debt or borrow from other players to buy stuff. And everybody has their own version of Monopoly, don't they? Where we don't, any of us play by the actual rules on the box, I don't think. But yeah, you just feel like I'm taking it all, everything down before me. This was Athens. We took down Persia, not the whole empire, but we took down Persia and Greece. You know, what is there we can't do? And Sparta's just like, well, we'll wait and see. We'll take our time. When they fight, they're really good. But it takes a while to get them moving, you know. He says Athens will just do anything in a heartbeat. So the next question I asked you was, how did the Athenians defend themselves? It just so happened the Corinthian messengers came to Sparta and they gave a speech. Those dirty, rotten Athenians, you better watch out because they're taking over the world. There happened to be some guys from Athens there listening. They're just listening to the speech. And they said, can we have turn? Can we have turn to speak? I'm like, yeah, bring it on. And what did the Athenians say to defend themselves? This is the next question I asked you. Julia, open your book. Page 21.
I found the thing in the book.
You want to read it?
Let's let her see if she
Oh,
can answer the
okay.
question first.
I wasn't calling her out to answer the question so much as to open your book. But do you have an answer to the question? How did the Athenians defend themselves?
No, not that
Okay.
one.
Would anyone else like to?
I can read the.
said that when the Persians invaded, everyone else would have been dead if it hadn't been for them.
Why don't, yeah, now, okay, yes, and Emma, you want to tell us from the,
Where
read?
should I start? I have a different book than yours.
Okay, but, okay, let me find the ones, okay, the we maintain.
Okay.
Just read this thing.
Just read this whole part.
Yeah.
Okay, I got you. We maintain, they said, that we rendered you a service at least as great as you rendered us. The cities from which you came to help us were still inhabited, and you might hope to return for them. Your concern was for yourselves and not for us. At any rate, you remained at a distance while we had anything to lose. But we went forth from a city which was no more, and fought for ours, one of which there was small hope. And yet we saved ourselves and bore our part in saving you. If, in order to preserve our land like other states, we had gone over to the Persians at first, or afterwards had not ventured to embark because our ruin was already complete, it would have been useless for you with your weak navy to fight at sea, but everything would have gone quietly, just as the Persians desired.
Yeah. We rendered you a service at least as great as you rendered us. You remained at a distance while we had anything to lose. Remember, the Persians are marching. They're marching south. Cities are going over to the Persians like gangbusters. Thebes goes over to the Persians. And Athens hangs on as long as they can, and Sparta just sits at home and waits to see what's going to happen. And they kept saying, you've got to help. Stop them. Now, Is that totally fair? Maybe not. They sent the Spartans to Thermopylae, right, to try to hold the pass. And it's not their fault. A traitor led the Persians around to the other side and they got trapped. But they said, look, we saved you. We left our homes behind, knowing the Persians were going to torch them, just to save Greece. It wasn't to save our own city. We didn't save our own city. The Persians invaded it. We saved your city. What did they say? We went forth from a city that was no more, and fought for one of which there was small hope. Yet we saved ourselves and bore a part in saving you. How dare you accuse us of making use of the power we have? We saved you. They said, this is a paraphrase after what Emma read, had the situation been reversed and had the Spartans acquired an empire, they would have found it just as necessary as had Athens to rule with a strong hand. Hey, if it were you, Spartans, if you saved Greece and you had a league, you'd need to rule the members of the league as strongly as we rule them. All right. The Spartans did not heed the plea for peace, and in 431 BC, the long, dreary war, known in history as the Peloponnesian War, began and dragged itself out for nearly 30 years. For 30 years, Sparta and its allies fought Athens and its allies. What were you going to ask, Emma?
Why
Or
did
comment?
they tell this story? A Trojan War took like 10 years.
This
And
is
then
true.
They still tell that in the story of the Odyssey, which also took 10 years. That's like 10 less than how long this one war dragged
This
out.
is true. This is true.
I
Now,
guess it's not as exciting.
it's maybe not as exciting, although there were some daring things that happened. I actually want to see, okay, hang on. I want to see what you're reading for next week. I don't want to blow up what you're going to read. Okay, we're going to read Spides. I think we're actually going to talk about that. Yeah, we're going to talk about that next week, so I don't want to. There's a very famous thing that happened, and it's kind of epic. But we'll talk about it next week. Okay, we'll read about it next week. I don't want to ruin it. But you're right. This is 3 times as long as the Trojan War, but we don't have those amazing characters like Achilles and Agamemnon. We do have some characters we're going to talk about next week,
Okay.
though. So I just want to read to you guys the end of this paragraph because let me ask you a question before I read it. So this war happened a really, really long time ago. 431 BC. What year is it this year?
2025.
Christian is a time traveler. He's come back from a year in the future. And then 431 BC. If I want to find out how many years it's been since then, should I subtract 431 or should I add 431? Yes. Because 2024 years ago, it was the year 1. But then I want 431 before that. So I have to add. You didn't know you were going to have to do math. It's very easy math.
I got you. Or you got it, I guess.
Shoot.
Almost 2,500 years ago, this war happened. In a place that most people don't even know what Peloponnese, what is that? But we're going to spend 2 weeks talking about the Peloponnesian War. And you know why? Why in the world are we going to talk about this war for 2 weeks? Let me read something that Dorothy Mills said. And think about it. The future is hidden from the eyes of each generation of men. Right? Do we know the future? Except maybe Christian. We don't know the future. But the past lies open before them. And to those who read the past with understanding comes enlightenment when similar difficulties surround them. For the past shows not only the beginning and the middle, but also the end of the story. If a war starts tomorrow, will we know the end of it until the end comes?
No, but we won't.
Well, it depends on how long the war is, right?
Actually, where I come from, the war stuff.
Okay, that's a bummer. But do we know the end of the Peloponnesian War? Yeah, we do. This is a very interesting thing to talk about today because it's election day, and so
Don't remind me.
we're
Even though I'm
talking.
not old enough to vote yet.
We're talking about, a lot of people are thinking about the founding fathers and the founding of our country. My high schoolers are reading and talking about the Constitution right now. Anyway, John Adams. Does everybody know that John Adams was president? And he had a son named John Quincy Adams, who was also president. And it's only twice that we've had a father-son, both president, which is kind of cool. I think that'd be way cool to be the wife of one president and the mom of another president. It's only 2 women in history. Anyway, John Adams was traveling, and his son John Quincy was about your age. And he wrote a letter to his dad, and he said, "Dad, what should I read? What should I study? Because I'm probably going to grow up and be a part of the government. My dad is, involved in government. I'm probably going to be involved in government." And do you know what Mr. John Adams told his son? He told him to read the history of the Peloponnesian War. He said, everything anybody in government will ever need to know is in that book. Everything that might happen happens in that book. And you can see how people dealt with it well and how people dealt with it poorly. Seriously, I had the letter. I printed it out and I read it to my high schoolers. When they read this book, this history book, like, John Adams said, that's all a statesman needs to know. Thucydides' history of the Peloponnesian War. Because we know what happened. People made decisions and we see what decisions they made. Anyway, so this is kind of why we're going to spend, even though, as Emma pointed out, maybe it's not as epically fun to read about as the Trojan War. But we know the end and we see lots of good choices and bad choices. Okay, what happened, this was the last question I asked you. What happened early in the war between Athens and Sparta to weaken Athens? Oh yes, here it is. The plague. I'm not sure, every time they say the plague, I'm not sure it's the bubonic plague. This particular one probably isn't. For reasons I'll tell you in a minute. But let me tell you how this horrible thing happened. Well, we know how people get sick, right? Germs travel. But remember that Athens had built a wall around themselves, right? And then walls that went down, here's the shore, right? These are not birds. And they built walls that went all the way down to the coast. They built another wall here, too. And so that people could bring food back and forth. They could get to their ships. The enemy couldn't get in. But the countryside is dotted with people with farms, right? They don't live in Athens. Well, it's like here, right? Not everybody lives in the Quad Cities. Like there's small farms around towns. And so when the war started, Sparta's plan, here's Sparta, is to march up here, gather their allies, march up here, and then just sort of pillage and burn, right? And by the way, Thebes was on their side. This area was on the Spartan side. So Athens was kind of hemmed in, although they had this island on their side. And so the Spartans would come every year, and they would just pillage and burn and pillage, and then they would go home for the winter. Got a little. And the Athenians would tell the farmers, everybody come inside. And you can camp inside the walls. We'll find places for you in the city. And so they're standing on the walls and they're looking, and the Spartans are running around and they're burning things and destroying things. And like, Pericles, what's the deal? They're burning everything. Pericles, Spartans are really, really good fighters. They're really, really good on land. We, however, are awesome at sea. We beat the Persians at sea. We have the biggest fleet in Greece. We have access to our ships. I like doing this, so I'm going to do it again. They run up here and burn things and go home. We're going to go down to the beach and sail over here and burn things and go home. Yay! But Pericles said, you do not want to go out there and just like line up your troops against Spartan hoplites. They are awesome. But we can pillage with our ships as much as we want. So like, okay, all right, Pericles, we'll listen to you. So they're all crowded in the city, and we know what happens when people all get crowded in together. And maybe for us this isn't true, but for them, maybe the bathroom situations weren't ideal. Maybe the cleaning situation wasn't ideal, and people get sick, right? And then they're really close to a lot of other people because they're all crowding together, and the other people get sick quickly. This is maybe why we tend to get a little sicker sometimes in the wintertime. You know what I mean? Cold and flu season, because we're kind of stuck inside close to each other instead of running around in parks and things. It happened in Athens, and it doesn't sound like the plague in the Middle Ages that killed a third of Europe. We know tons about this plague because the guy who wrote the history of the war got it, but he lived. I should have brought that in. Maybe I'll do that next week. He wrote what it's like. He said, I know what this is like because I got it, and this is what it does to you. He said people became desperately thirsty. Like they would just crawl out and fling their faces into a well or a bowl of water and just drink and drink, but it wouldn't do any good. They're burning up with fever. They broke out in boils and stuff. And he said people just got like they didn't care anymore about anything because they thought they were going to die. So people were sort of looting and pillaging, and then everybody was angry with Pericles. Like, you did this to us, Pericles. You made us all come in this city. We're all going to die. So Pericles gets up. He's like, everybody, you knew when we decided to go to war with Sparta. We voted to go to war with Sparta. You knew it was going to be tough. You knew they were going to come over here and burn your stuff. Why are you surprised that they're burning your stuff? That's what happens in a war. And we're going to get through this. Yes, people are sick. We're going to get through it. And he tried to calm them down. However, Pericles got it, and it killed him. Just like 2 years into the war. 2 years into this 30-year war, their leader died of the plague.
Yay.
And you know what they did? It sprung back up now and then. Every once in a while, there was another bout of sickness, and it would wipe out people. But this was a real blow, and it wasn't so much that so many people died that they couldn't fight anymore. They certainly didn't lose any ships to the plague. Ships don't get the plague. But it wasn't good for their morale. Do you know what I mean by that?
Yeah.
It didn't make them feel good about themselves, and it made them feel like everything was bad and they were going to lose. Also, it did something else. Pericles said, sit tight in the city. After they're done pillaging, we're going to go down and get in our boats, and we're going to teach them a lesson. We're going to sail around the Peloponnese. We're going to capture people. We're going to take their stuff. They will pay for this. Just don't do anything stupid. Don't go out there and start attacking cities. Just rely on the fleet and sail around and pillage. And then Pericles died. And the people who took over said, Pericles was a scaredy cat. Let's go out there and fight. Exactly what he told them not to do. So maybe if he hadn't died of the plague, this whole story of this war would be really different. Not tomorrow. Next week, I'm going to ask you to read the rest of chapter 16. So, we read parts 1 and 2. So you're reading parts 3, 4, and 5. It's the rest of the war. And an episode that is very, very famous an episode in this war that kind of goes down in history because it's just crazy what they did. Let me see if there's anything else. Oh, let me add one more thing. Let me just read this paragraph to you. Pericles was dead, and Cleon, who had succeeded him as the leader of the people, had no power to inspire the Athenians to be true to their highest ideals. And as conditions grew more and more difficult, Athens was forced at length to give herself up to a fight for her life. By the way, Thucydides, who wrote that history, called Cleon the most violent man in Athens. That's nice. Yeah, he's their leader. Anger, suspicion, and hatred took the place of the old ideals, and it seemed as if her strength had turned to weakness and despair. And then Athens sealed her own doom, for to save her own citizens from heavy taxation in order to carry on the war, without asking their consent, she doubled the amount of tribute paid to her by allies every year. All those islands and cities, it's like, your taxes just went up by double. Give us double now. So she broke the charter once made in good faith between them. Our friend Thucydides, who wrote the history of this amazing war, had a little problem, and it was this. These cities aren't marked on here. They're fighting up here in the north. These were all Greek colonies, right? And some of them were allied with Sparta, and some were allied with Athens. They were fighting up here. And Thucydides, our historian, was actually a general. He was a commander of a ship. And he was stationed up here. And they were fighting and trying to take a city, and it wasn't going well, and they called for reinforcements. And Thucydides, as soon as he got the message, he sailed over, but he was too late. The city was already taken. And Athens exiled him, Thucydides, because he was late. I mean, there's no reason to think he wasted time. He just didn't get there in time. The city surrendered to the enemy before Thucydides could get there to help. And like, okay, Thucydides, you are banished now from Athens. Don't come home. We are relieving you of command. You are no longer a commander of a ship. Go away. This is what they did to a lot of their rulers or their commanders. So Thucydides had nothing but time to go live somewhere else and write a history of the war, which is what he did. And to us, he's known as a historian, but he was actually a naval commander who made a mistake, or maybe not, just didn't get there in time, and they banished him. They didn't call him home for like 20 years. It wasn't ostracized. It was, you're in trouble and you're banished. And you can't come back until we call for you, if we ever do. This is making me sad. Thucydides didn't deserve that. So please read the rest of that chapter and find out about the crazy plan they hatched. Also, I believe we're going to meet Socrates, who you may know. All right. Any questions, comments, interesting things? No? Let's talk about the cat of Bubastes. What does, I think we talked about this last week, but the priest, Amares, what does he think about the Egyptian gods? Who does he think they are? Or what does he think about them?
They're like all one person.
Yeah. I don't think they're really a bunch of gods. I think maybe they're all, there's one god, and they're all these gods are just aspects. I brought in a plaque. This is Hathor. Hathor is the, where's my glasses? Hathor is the goddess that has the cow head, sort of, and this one she doesn't have a cow head, but she has like horns sitting on top. You have probably seen many pictures of these crazy gods. I have another picture. Oh, and by the way, do you see the cartouche? The little oval-shaped thing that has the name of the ruler, of the pharaoh. This is a nice example of some very cool-looking hieroglyphics as well. We'll leave this here, and you can take a look at it on your way out if you want to. they had some pretty wild gods. This should look interesting to you.
Oh, yeah.
Bastet, the cat goddess. It says, the cat goddess Bastet was the daughter of Re, the sun god. She represented the power of the sun to ripen the crops. Many bronze cat figures were dedicated to her in her now ruined temple in the Northeast Delta. We have Anubis, he's got a dog head. We have Thoth, he has a bird beak. The ram-headed god Knum. Some very weird stuff, very weird stuff. Now, what group of people are living in Egypt during the time that this book is being written? Israelites. And how did the Israelites end up leaving? Like, what did God do that brought about them leaving? Moses and the plagues, exactly. And you guys may have heard this, you may have been taught this before, but I brought a sheet. A lot of people have speculated that each of the plagues targeted one of the gods.
Yes.
Right? That it's not just random. Because some of them seem a little like, have a bunch of frogs, have a bunch of flies.
Kill all the animals.
What? Yeah, kill all the animals. But I've got, Christian, go ahead.
There was a god with a frog head.
See.
That's what it is. The frog.
So what I did, this is a little chart, and it's, it's not a total one-to-one correspondence. So the first thing that gets stricken is the Nile, right? The Nile turns to blood. And there's a god of the Nile. Hathor, our friend Hathor, is on here. Anyway, this might be interesting for you to look through and compare. It gives you the Bible reference and the plague, and then it also tells you what god or gods might be. Okay, here's 2 for you, and then I'll give 3 for this side, and take one and pass on, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. There. Now I have an extra, but no, I have more than 1 extra. I have 3 extra. Why? Oh, the Beatis.
I don't remember there being darkness in one of the plagues, but maybe
There was a
remember my
plague of
Bible
darkness. There was a plague of darkness.
Yeah, I guess I just haven't read that in a while.
That's okay. So Amaris thinks that these are not real gods. Now, what terrible thing happened to Amuba and Chebron, particularly in your reading this week? What terrible thing happened?
Killed the cat that was soon to be the cat of the
Accidentally.
They killed a cat. I guess it was really actually early in this week's reading. They were traveling in the north end of the country, where there were crocodiles, and they rescued a girl, an Israelite girl, who was about to be eaten by a crocodile, and they just basically clubbed it to death. And then, I don't know if it was going to eat the girl. I don't remember if they clubbed it to death. They did club it. They did club it. They whacked it. Oh, it died. So Chebron felt really, really bad about this. Does anybody remember why he felt so very bad?
Because it was one of their sacred animals.
Yeah, because he thought crocodiles were sacred to the gods. But the weird thing was, the people in the north part, they didn't believe crocodiles were sacred to the gods. And so he went, do you remember he went to his dad? He's like, Dad, I did something terrible.
He wrote a letter.
Yeah, oh yeah, he wrote a letter, right? Because he was off with the hunter. They were off on a hunt. And he wrote a letter, like, Dad, I've done something terrible. You know what? I think you should know how I feel about the gods. I don't think these animals are really gods. B, the people who live around us don't even care about the crocodiles. If crocodiles were gods, wouldn't they be gods everywhere and not just in one part of Egypt? And told him it was okay. However, this did not help when he killed that cat. It all came back again, right? Oh my gosh. I killed a sacred animal, and not just anyone. It was going to be the sacred cat in the temple of Bastet. What am I going to do? Now, religiously, did he do anything wrong? Did they do anything actually wrong or immoral? It's just an accident, right? If you shoot an arrow, it bounces off something, it hits the cat dies. I'm sorry for the cat. But they didn't, like, set out to shoot cats. But is there a legitimate reason for them to be afraid? It's not because the Bastet goddess is going to come for them, but
People are going to be mad.
the people are going to come for them. It's death penalty. It's death penalty. Oh my gosh, so now they have to decide if they should run away or if they should stay.
I mean, they left the door open in case.
Right. Hopefully they can trick them. They buried it, so hopefully they can get away with it. Now, I would like everybody to get an empty piece of paper out. I don't care if it's the back of your reading questions or if it's a piece of notebook paper, whatever. We're going to start a new paper question. We're not going to write the paper. We're going to come up with ideas. But let's come up with ideas. Well, the why not is actually because I'd like you to read a little bit more because you might read things that make you have more ideas this week. Yeah. But so I want to start, and then we'll finish getting ideas next week, and we'll write the paper after that, okay? Here's what I would like you to write at the top of your paper, if I can find my marker. Here it is. Why do I have just little Athenian farms everywhere? But then some of them are not, like some of them are actually just spots on the, okay. Should Chebron and Amuba, can I say flee? Does everybody know what that means? Flee, run away. Okay. And let's do a yes, and let's do a no. And let's just come up with anything we can. Next week we'll group them maybe, and organize them. But I would like you, we're going to read the next 5 chapters. Let me tell, chapters 11 through 15. Okay, that's what you're reading. What? That's okay. Well, you know what? If you know things, you can, don't tell, but you can write them down in your own personal list, right? By next week, we'll have read enough to really have a pretty good, list here going. First of all, let's use this to discuss the book today. Let's use our chart. Does anybody have a yes reason or a no reason they want to lead with? Like you want to?
For yes, people are going to get mad, and like you said, death penalty. Mad?
Death penalty is a really good yes.
If anyone finds out, we're going to get mad at them.
It's death penalty.
Sorry, did that not sound good?
No, that is absolutely right. Yes. So, the people are mad.
People will get mad.
People, that's good. Will be mad. If Chebron dies, I'm going back over the book, but I'm not going back anything you haven't read so that I don't. Sometimes I read the whole book again, and then I say things that you haven't read yet. This is always a mistake. But yes, someone did die in your reading, right? Do you remember who died?
Mary's.
I don't think Mary's. Oh, no. Yeah, his older son.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah,
Right?
him.
Do you remember Chebron has an older brother that we don't really meet because he doesn't live at home? And he got killed. I'm actually going somewhere with this line of thought. So he's already lost his other son. Amaris has lost his other son. What happens to Amaris and his wife if Chebron dies?
They have no hair.
They have no heir. They have Misa, but it's, no offense, ladies, but in a lot of times in the past, it was that you wanted a guy. You wanted a guy to inherit. So, so if Chebron dies, I'm going to put this down. If Chebron dies, if he gets killed, executed, if Chebron dies, his parents will be,
Devastated?
yeah, I wanted more than devastated.
Parents
Well,
will have no air.
we'll have no air. And not only that, they don't have someone to take care of them as they get older. I mean, they have a daughter, I realize, but she'll go off with a husband and then care for her husband's family. Do you see what I mean? That's how it usually. So they could be, his parents could just be left nowhere. And I'm going to add Emma's too. And devastated. I mean, it will be awful for his parents because they've already lost one son. What if they lost this? That'd be awful.
But how should we put in that their other son died?
Yeah, let's put that in. This is our day to put down everything we know and everything we're thinking. Parents already lost one son. I like that. I mean, I don't like that they lost one son. I think that's a good thing to state. I like stating that. Let's think of, is there anything else that flows out of the fact that it's a death penalty thing? Anything that's a consequence of that?
They basically killed a god, as the Egyptians said.
I think we're
Yeah,
God.
yeah. Could that be a separate thing? Could we explore that as a whole separate, like not related to death penalty? What do you think of Bryn?
That would take all of their honor, but just prove it's God. One of your family members killed a cat.
Oh, yes. So we could put that under death penalty. We'd also put that under the. I'm going to start a new one because I like that. They killed a god. I'm going to put God in little. Because Chebron believes that it's a god. Even if his dad doesn't really, even if Amuba says, you Egyptians are nutcases. I don't know why you worship all these animals. That's weird. But he says, but you guys are nice to me, so I'll, play along with it. And so, yeah, Bryn said, this could go with this or it could go with this. This will disgrace the family. This whole thing, just awful disgrace. Either that your son killed a god or that he was like executed by the government. That's not ever an awesome thing for a family to have happen, ever. You got an idea?
And Nuba is a prince, right? So
Yes.
he might die along with Chebron, and then they have no hair.
That's true.
Never
That's
mind.
true.
Don't even put that down.
Why not?
I don't know if that's important or not.
I think that we should write down everything.
That's not
That we-
important, though.
You know what I'm going to
Why
do?
did I even mention that?
Hey,
That's
Emma,
stupid.
I'm going to put it here. We have a third category I never use. It's called the interesting category. We're actually supposed to do this. And it's the stuff we're not sure what to do with, but we want to remember that we thought it. Amuba is a prince. If he dies, no more royal heir for the reboot. And we don't know yet. It doesn't, I mean, he's in slavery right now, but we don't know. Is he always going to be there? Is he always going to be in slavery? We don't know. But Emma, I am glad you brought this up because here's what just popped in my head. If they run away, do they have a place they could go?
Yes. Oh.
Amuba's, what do we want to kingdom is kingless and may welcome them. They would probably hide them from the Egyptians. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take this now because I did think of a place to put that information. I'm just going to, you don't have to do it like that. I'm just going to remind myself. That is, in other words, they don't have to roam the world always on the run. They just go home. Amoeba's home. And they're home free, as they say. I like that. Well, this is pretty, we feel like we're really saying, run, run. Does anybody have a good reason that they shouldn't run? What do you think, Ann?
Right after the accident, if they disappeared, they might connect it.
Okay. If you guys ever watch police shows or crime shows, the person who runs away seems guilty. Some of you read Macbeth with me last year.
Yes.
And you might remember that after Macbeth killed the king nefariously, he pretended he didn't, because he didn't want anybody to know. And the king had 2 sons, if you recall. And the sons were afraid, oh, somebody killed Dad. I wonder if they're coming for us next. We need to skedaddle. We need to get away. And they left, and they used that as, Macbeth used that. It's like, oh, look, apparently his sons killed him because they ran away. And only guilty people run away. So, guilty people run away. I like that.
What about if he
Oh,
would be
run.
away from his family?
Oh, say that again,
He
Julia.
would be away from his family.
Who's he?
Muba. Or
Amoeba.
not the Jeff.
Chebron.
Chibron.
Okay, so I'm going to leave a little space just in case I want to add something. So Chebron would, why am I turning every N into an M today? Would be away from his family. I think that's kind of obvious what the repercussions of that are. They will miss each other. It will also, what did we say about if he dies? How is that going to affect his parents?
They're not going to have an heir.
Yeah, if Chebron leaves,
They're still not going to have
they're still not going to have an heir. Parents
Okay.
left alone, we'll just say. Parents will be left alone.
I mean,
Also, we found out something. We don't know what's going on yet, but do you remember Chebron and Amoeba went at night into the temple and they discovered a secret passageway, and it was like they found out, which is kind of not something everybody's supposed to know, that you can hide up in the head of one of the gods and make it sound like the god is talking to you by talking through the hole, which is very tricky. But then, yes, they overheard the murder plot. Something nasty is afoot, and they don't know what it is.
but we know what it is.
We may or may not know what it is. We do know his son got killed the next day. Do we actually at this
Yeah.
point know? Have they said?
Well, there was a little skit where, I don't know if it was, but the parents were talking when Misa refused to marry their son, and they were like, we're gonna get revenge on her dad.
Oh, yes. So,
And they were
thank you. Yes. So we suspect that Amiris may be in danger. We know that other priest's family hates Amiris and his family, right? They've got sort of a family feud thing going.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know, like his dad is currently potentially in danger. So if they leave him alone, he's got not there to protect Dad
Yeah.
from enemies.
They also said that I think they wanted to kill him, so then because the guy's dad was the next person that could be high priest too.
They want his job. This is also, honestly, yeah, that is not a yeah. That is a really solid no. His dad is in some level of danger. Not quite
They
sure
don't
how
know
that's going to
that.
play out. Yeah. But we do know that, and we do know that family hates him. Okay, guilty people run away, so it just makes it look bad. If they run away and they leave his dad and his mom and his sister, being guilty makes you look, running away makes you look guilty. What might they do to his family?
They might.
Kill them.
Yeah, they might punish or kill family. because they think, oh, see, they were guilty, they did it, they ran away, so now we're coming for you. They might, I don't know that this is the right term, they might fire his dad, you know. I don't know if you get fired from being priest, but you know what I mean. Remove him from the priesthood. Take away his livelihood. Take away his honor. Oh. Guilty people run away. Chebron will not be there to help his family, and also he will miss his family if they run away. You got any other strong no's currently, or do we want to sort of let that simmer? Let me look back through the book. I marked a couple of things to talk about. So you got an idea of that?
Possibly. Let's wait though.
Okay.
Because I don't know, it's a universal thing. So I'm just not going to bother.
Okay, well, if it develops more in your head and you feel better about it, please let us know. Those are just. I'll look at those later, but I don't know. There's things I want to talk about, but I don't know if I have a good yes or no. I think I'm going to leave it there. Let me just browse through the chapters that we've read. Can we say this is just a personal thing? How is Misa going to feel if they run away?
Sad.
She's going to be devastated. Misa will be sad. And it seems to me that Chebron and Misa have a pretty good brother-sister relationship.
Wish I could relate.
It's maybe not perfect, but it's not, they don't hate each other or fight all the time. All right, here's what I want you to do. I want to bring up a couple of other things in the book. I'll leave this up here, so while we talk, maybe something will pop into your head, and if so, just interrupt and we'll put it up there. But I would like you to read the next 5 chapters, and I would like you to add to anything that you think of as you're reading, add to it. You got one, Amelia?
No, I was gonna say you might want to take a photo.
I am going to take a picture. I made a huge list for myself, but I don't want to give you anything I wrote, because you might come up with it yourselves, you know what I mean? And I'm pretty sure we came up with things today that I didn't come up with on my own. So I'm just going to let that sit, and I'll bring it out next week. One thing, but before we leave it, always it's kind of good to ask ourselves, what happens if they do it? What happens if they don't? I think we've asked ourselves most of that. What happens if they do it? Well, I mean, this is kind of elementary. What's life like for fugitives?
Complicated.
It's
Never ending.
yes. It will be difficult. I don't even know how to say it. Difficult. They'll have to find food. Because even if they go to Amuba's kingdom, that's a long way. It took weeks and weeks and weeks for them to travel. Yes.
Would that be in the know?
Oh, yes, it would be in the know. Thank you. It will be difficult. They'll have no food. They might endanger people who help them. You know what I mean? Like if they're traveling and somebody says, oh, I want to help you. You can stay with me 2 nights and hide from the guards that are chasing you. And then if the guards find out that they helped them, they might throw them in prison or execute them or something. So if they do it, it's just going to be hard. If they don't, they've hidden it, right? Somebody mentioned, I think it was Emma mentioned, they opened the door, they left the door open to the cage. Okay, well they buried the cat and they've covered their tracks. But do we all have we all done something we shouldn't have done?
Yes.
Is it safe for me to assume that everybody in this room has at some point done something that you ought not to have done? And then, how do you feel? Like, not guilty, I don't mean that, but, okay, so, you're, yes, you're afraid somebody's gonna find out. It's like, oh no, I'm just waiting for it. I'm waiting to be outed. You know, I ate the last piece of pie. Well, yes. I'm not sure. Only if your mother commanded you not to eat too much cheesecake. Is that, it might be, it's gluttonous, but it's not disobedient. But if your mom said that last piece of cheesecake is for your dad, but you went in there and ate it, like you're just waiting for the moment when your dad comes in and says, hey, where's that last piece of cheesecake? And your mom says, you already ate it. And he says, no, I didn't. And it's all over. If they don't leave, they're going, paranoid is a perfect word. We're just going to use Emma's word, paranoid. They're going to worry about detection, I want to say. Worry about being found out. And just that constant on edge. Oh no, oh no, oh no, someone's going in the garden. Are they going to find the cat? Are they going to find the cat? Oh no, there's a dog in there sniffing around where I buried that cat. Are they going to dig it up? Are they going to... Oh my gosh, that's a terrible way to live. So, okay, well, we will cap it there, but I will leave it while we talk because I wanted to mention a couple of things about the part that you read. Here's the big thing I'd like to talk about. Is it possible, okay, in this book, this is a made-up book. Everybody understands that, right? Amuba and Chebron are not real. Although G.A. Henty, the author of many, many, many historical fiction books like this, did massive amounts of research. So he made it as true to what they know about the time as possible. So all of that business about how they hunted, the hunters you talked about the boats that they used and how they capture various animals and how they fight hippopotamus and stuff like that. He did research on that, so that's true, all right? But we don't know if there was a priest who thought that the gods of Egypt were all one god. That's a made-up part, okay? Although, did I tell you there was a pharaoh that wanted to worship only one god? Did I mention that already? No. You know what? This is a good time to mention that. Egypt's kind of the same for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Do you know what I mean? If you read Egyptian history, it's just like they do the same things and they eat the same stuff and they wear the same clothes and they have this. It just doesn't change. Until there was a guy, and his name was Akhenaten. I don't think that was originally his name. He changed it to Akhenaten because he thought there was a god named Aten and that it was the only god. He was what we call a monotheist. He believed in one god. We are monotheists. The Jews are monotheists. Muslims are monotheists, right? Believe in one God. And so, but he believed it so much, this Aten, that he closed the temples for other gods, and he started sort of chipping off inscriptions to other gods off the stone and stuff like that. And people did it because he was Pharaoh and he was in charge. But they didn't like it. We know they didn't like it because after he died, they went back to worshiping all the gods again and they scratched his name off all the monuments. It's like, no, we don't want to have him anywhere where it was in a little cartouche, Akhenaten, chip it off. It was either his son or nephew or grandson, I don't remember. It was the next or the next after next ruler. He was pretty young, and he came to the throne, and guys, he was named for the god Aten. His name was Tutankhaten. Tutankhaten. And everybody hated the whole Aten thing so much, they made him change his name back to the sun god Amen, Tutankhamen. He was yeah, oh, wonderful. I'm going to bring pictures of this in. He was Tutankhaten. After this one god, so Egypt, even Egypt changed a little bit once upon a time. They had a guy who said, you know what, I don't think there's all these gods, I think there's only one. My question that I'd like to explore, though, is do you think it's possible that all those people in the ancient world who worshipped all these gods, was it possible for God to speak to them too? Like, does God have the power to speak to anybody he wants? Can you think of an example of a time when God reached out to a pagan group of people or a pagan person and gave them messages or information or spoke to them? Saul was pretty pagan. So do you guys know Saul called up somebody from the dead and talked to Samuel after he was dead? It's one of the creepiest stories in the entire Bible. I feel like. Oh yeah, Saul went to a witch. Saul went to a sorceress, a medium, we would say, with her crystal ball, and he said, "Call up Samuel's ghost, so I can ask him information about the war." And he came, and apparently the medium lady just about fell off her chair. It's like, oh my goodness, it really worked. I don't know if she faked it usually, just for money. He really came, and instantly she knew. She said, "You're Saul," because he was in disguise. Like, "You're Saul," and that's the same. What is going on? Oh yeah, Saul dabbled in some pretty nasty stuff. But God was very patient with him. Like kept giving him, revealing things to him. Is there another time in the Bible when somebody who wasn't even an Israelite, they totally were a pagan, and they got information from God? I will give you a hint.
Does it have to be good information?
Any information. True information, because it's from God. One of them was a pharaoh. Do you remember an episode where God sent a message to a pharaoh?
Oh,
Yes.
the one in Moses' time? I don't even know his name.
Yeah, it was before Moses. Well, I mean, God spoke to the Pharaoh, obviously, through what Moses did. But long before, about 400 and some years before that, there was a Pharaoh. He dreamed it.
Oh.
Guys, what did Joseph do in Egypt?
Yeah.
He had a dream. God sent him a dream, and it said, there's going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. But God just sent him a dream randomly. Sent some pagan guy a dream. Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, had a dream about some funky statue. It had a head of gold and shoulders and arms of silver and a body of bronze and legs of iron, and then it was mixed with clay. And then he woke up and said, "What in the world?" And he said, "Daniel, come over here and explain this to me." And he did. It was a prophecy of the future. It was a prophecy of the future. Oh, it was do you remember the gold? Do you mean what did it mean? Or what was the dream?
What did it mean?
Oh, Daniel said, God showed you the future. He said, you are the head of gold. The Babylonian Empire is the head of gold. After you will come another empire of silver, it's Persia. After you will come another empire, it's Greece. Yeah, and after you, the iron, will come another empire, Rome. And then it's interesting because it's two legs. Eventually the Roman Empire split into two halves. And then it got weaker as it went down, iron mixed with clay. And then he saw something else happen. A rock cut out of a mountain, not by human hands, came and smashed it to pieces. It's Jesus. It's the kingdom of God, not cut by human hands. It takes out all the kingdoms. It comes in the time of Rome. It's very cool. But anyway, my point is that Nebuchadnezzar was not some God-fearing guy. He was just some random pagan guy who even built a statue and said, "Everybody worship this statue of me." And he threw people in a fiery furnace when they didn't. What?
Yeah.
And he talked to him.
We just talked about the story in youth group.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego.
Yes, indeed.
Literally
So,
just 2 days ago.
yeah. Well, it's sometimes when we talk about something one place, it pops up somewhere else. I find this happens frequently to me.
Thank you.
So, is it possible for people to learn about God who weren't God's chosen people? I think it is. I think it is. Is it possible that a guy like Amyris could live in Egypt and it could be revealed to him that there's actually just one God? Sure. I mean, God can do whatever he wants to, right? Like, he has that power. He can communicate in dreams and whatnot. Here's something interesting that the church fathers said. They said the Israelites got prepared for Jesus by the Old Testament and by the sacrifices and everything. He said everyone else got prepared for Jesus by their stories. Like Hera and Zeus and all of these crazy stories. It was revealing something to them about what God is like. I think it's very cool that they put this in. Okay. What else do I want to talk about? I wanted to mention why do the other priests hate Amyris, do you think? I mean, this guy that's his enemy, his personal enemy. Why do you think he hates him so much? What do you think, Bryn? Okay. Because he's jealous. He wants his job. What are you thinking, Joey? So, in other words, does he hate him mostly because he thinks Amyris is sacrilegious and bad and disrespectful to the gods? Or do you think it's just because he hates him as a person and he wants his job? I don't really have an answer to that.
Yes.
Hmm?
Second option. Yes.
Maybe so. It doesn't make him sound very godly, does it? Okay, one last thing. Let me pick one of my things that I chose. Oh, I already talked about that, so I'm not going to read that. Oh. Amyris was thus as exact as ever in his ministration in the temple, differing only from the other performers of the sacred rites, inasmuch as while they offered their sacrifices to Osiris himself, he in his heart dedicated his offerings to the great God, of whom Osiris was but a feeble type or image. It's like, I'm going to go in the temple and I'm going to give these offerings, but I'm actually sending them not to Osiris. I'm sending them to the God that I know exists, but I don't know anything more about. In the Old Testament, you know this story, there was a man named Naaman, and he was Syrian. He was a commander of the Syrian army. And Naaman had a problem. Does anybody remember Naaman's horrible health problem? Leprosy. Naaman had leprosy. It was highly contagious skin disease. And it disfigured you, and it was terrible. And it just so happened that they had been raiding with the army, and they'd kidnapped a little Israelite girl. And she was in their house, and she said, hey, too bad we're not in Israel, because there's a prophet there that can cure leprosy. Boom. So Naaman goes. And it's Elijah. It's Elisha. And Elisha tells him to go take 7 dips in the Jordan River. You remember this story? And you'll be clean.
Yeah.
And he's like, dude, I got better rivers at home. And his friend's like, buddy, he just wants you to do a little thing. Just go, what are you going to lose? So he does it, and he's healed. Anyway, this is the part of the story that sometimes we don't remember. He comes back, and he says, I'm healed. Do you remember?
Like gold and stuff.
Yeah, and he wants to give him presents. And Elisha's like, no, we don't do that. But he said, well, here's the thing. I'm going to take a jar of dirt from Israel, because the God of this land is the true God. And he said, would you pray that your God will forgive me for one thing. When I go into the temple at home of the god Rimmon with the king, and he leans on my arm, and I go in the temple, and if I do a little bow or pinch, will God forgive me? Because I don't believe in that God anymore. But I have to go because it's my job. And Elisha just said, go in peace. Go in peace. It's okay. You know who you're really offering to. Now, the king doesn't. God understands. It's your job and you have to do it. It's just so lovely. And so now it reminds me of Mary's, who goes and is like, oh, everybody else is bowing down to Osiris, but I'm in my heart. It's the true God. Now, we shouldn't do that today. We shouldn't just go in pagan temples and start bowing down to idols and saying, oh, but it's really the truth. But for them, it was different. You know what I mean? They didn't understand. Anyway, I think it's a very cool plot twist in this story. Has anybody ever read The Last Battle, the last of the Chronicles of Narnia?
Yes.
So some of you will know what I mean. So they are, I don't want to blow it, they're in a place, they're in a special place at the end of the book, and they meet a guy named Emeth. And he was actually a worshiper of Tash, the god, do you remember that? And he said, oh, I don't belong here. And Aslan said, no, you in your heart, you were worshiping me. You thought it was Tash, but you were really my follower. You wanted me and you didn't know. Anyway, what is God's arrangement with pagans? I have no idea. What is his arrangement with us? We're supposed to believe in Jesus, right? That's his arrangement. He gave us Jesus. He gave us the church. But anyway, I would like you to read the next 5 chapters. As you read, please, if you think of any good reason to run or any good reason not to run, especially if something happens in the plot, and say, for example, they don't run away. Well, we'll find out what happens and write that down. Say they do run away. Find out what happens and add it to the list, right? And we will develop that further, and then the next week we'll write the paper. Any questions at all? So you don't have to write it, just add. Yes, ma'am. Here, I'm going to shut this off, and then you show me.
Yes.